Welcome to Leah's Reading Corner. At Leah's Reading Corner, Leah reads chapter books, comic books, dork diaries, Harry Potter books, and all sorts of books. And if you enjoy this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and click that notification bell to get a notification if Leah makes another video. Enjoy!
Hey guys, it's Leah and welcome back to Leah's Reading Corner. Today I'm going to be reading Amelia Bedelia Means Business by Herman Parrish, pictures by Lynn Avril. Let's get started. Chapter 1, Money is the Route. Amelia Bedelia never meant to lead a pack of dogs on a wild goose chase. She never meant to steal something and then sell it. She never meant to make someone look bad, very bad. Or let a parade astray, or even stomp on a piece of perfectly delicious cherry pie. But all that and more actually happened. Amelia Bedelia needed to earn some money. The truth was, Amelia Bedelia needed to earn a lot of money. Maybe that was the real problem. Earning some money would have been easy. Amelia Bedelia could have planted petunias for a neighbor or fed a cat while its owner was on a vacation. But such small jobs would never have earned the wheelbarrows full of money Amelia Bedelia needed to make. It all started innocently enough when Amelia Bedelia decided that she wanted a new bike. But then one thing led to another until the mayor of Amelia Bedelia's town finally said that Amelia Bedelia, she means business. Here's what happened. Chapter 2, The Bike. Amelia Bedelia adored her bike. It was a great bike. It was fast and dependable, and she had learned to ride on it. She could tell you how it had gotten every dent. She could tell you what had chipped each fragment of paint from the frame and what had made those rusty scratches on the chrome. She could match each insult to her bike to an injury on her body, scabs on her knees, scrapes to her elbows, bruises on her shins, and a tiny sliver of a scar under her chin. Amelia Bedelia had parked her bike at the bike rack. She was about to go into school when she saw some kids buzzing around Susan Scroggins. Susan was a new girl this year. She told all her friends to call her Susie. Amelia Bedelia still called her Susan. Even though Amelia Bedelia sat right behind her, Amelia Bedelia had never figured out why Susan was so crabby and bossy every day. Every day except for today, of course, since it was the last day of school before vacation. Amelia Bedelia noticed the difference right away. Susan was smiling from ear to ear. Then Amelia Bedelia saw why. Susan had a new bike. It was the most beautiful bike in the world. Amelia Bedelia was speechless, but she did make a sound. It was the takes your breath away inhaling sound that you can't control when you see something amazing. The bike was painted a rich emerald green with metal flakes that sparkled like diamonds floating just beneath the smooth enamel surface. Gleaming chrome reflected the morning sun, dazzling Amelia Bedelia's eyes. She tried to look away, but she could not take her eyes off the bike. It hurt to look. It hurt more not to look. Every inch of the bike was so streamlined that it looked as though it was still moving, even after Susan had parked it. From the back of her throat, Amelia Bedelia managed to croak. "Nice bike." "Thank you," says Susan, "but bikes are bikes." "That's true," said Amelia Bedelia. "Just two wheels with spokes. And lots of gears," said Susan. "I don't have any gears," said Amelia Bedelia. Two tires, definitely, said Susan. Not really, said Amelia Bedelia. I don't get too tired without gears. Brakes? Said Susan. Sometimes my bike breaks. And said Amelia Bedelia. Then my dad fixes it. The bell rang. It was time to go inside. As Susan locked her bike at the rack, she said, Don't forget to lock up your bike, Amelia Bedelia. That's when the truth hit Amelia Bedelia. She had never locked up her bike. She didn't have to because it wasn't worth stealing. Who would want it after seeing the bike? Amelia Bedelia didn't, that's for sure. Everyone followed Susan into school, leaving Amelia Bedelia to ponder the difference between the two bikes. She felt bad for her bike. She felt bad about feeling bad about her bike. She felt bad, period. She felt bad, period. Finding out that life is unfair was no way to start the day, and it was certainly no way to start a school vacation. After that afternoon, after school, Amelia Bedelia avoided everyone, even her friends. She hid behind the dumpster, listening to the laughter and the jokes and the cries of, Have a good break. Finally, Amelia Bedelia got on her bike and rode home. She took the back way so no one would see her. Chapter 3. There before the grace. And please, said Amelia Bedelia, bring me a new bike. Amen. After she finished saying grace, Amelia Bedelia dove into her supper. Her parents did not begin to eat. They just looked at her, then at each other. Her mom arched an eyebrow as high as it would go. Her dad opened his eyes super wide for a couple of seconds, as if someone had stepped on his stomach. Had Amelia Bedelia been paying attention instead of twirling her spaghetti and dreaming about bikes, she would have seen the secret eye talk that all parents use to communicate with each other when their kids are present. Amelia Bedelia's father unfolded his napkin, spread it on his lap, and then asked, So, has anyone seen any nice bikes lately? Amelia Bedelia sat up straight, without having to be told, and exclaimed, You won't believe the bike I saw today. You won't believe the bike that I saw today. She spent the next 10 minutes giving her parents an inch-by-inch description of the most beautiful bike in the world, down to the last spoke. Goodness, said Amelia Bedelia's mother. A bike that's special must cost an arm and a leg. Amelia Bedelia shook her head. I would never pay that much, she said. You need both your arms to steer a bike, like that, and both legs to pedal. That's a good point, said her father. You certainly need to be big and strong to ride a bike like that. Yes, said her mother. So take a bite of your broccoli before it gets cold. Amelia Bedelia took an extra large bite. How far away is Christmas? She asked. A long way away, said her mother. Amelia Bedelia took a much smaller bite of her broccoli. How far away is my birthday? Even farther, said her father. Did I get all of my allowance this week? Every penny, said her father. But remember, you'll have to pay me if you talk with your mouth full. Amelia Bedelia closed her mouth. She chewed and chewed, then she swallowed and said, Could I get an early Christmas present and an early birthday present? A new bike is the only thing you have to give me ever for years and years. Well, said her mother, I think it would be better if a bike wasn't just given to you. Amelia Bedelia looked down at her plate. Her stomach hurt. Now she wished she had not eaten any broccoli at all. Since she was looking at her plate, She once again missed the eye talk between her parents. This time, her mom's eyes grew wider, while both of her dad's eyebrows arched high enough to graze the ceiling. "I agree," said her dad. "You should work for a new bike and earn the money for at least half of it." Amelia Bedelia smiled and looked at her parents. Which half costs more?" she said. The front half or the back half?" "They don't sell bikes that way, honey," said her mother. Then her father said, "I'll tell you what." "What?" asked Amelia Bedelia. "What about what? What do you have to tell me about what? Can we please keep talking about my bike instead of what?" Amelia Bedelia's father patiently refilled his water glass. "We can't afford to buy a fancy bike like that," he said. But I can meet you halfway." Amelia Bedelia slid off her chair. She walked exactly halfway around the table and stood there. Her mom and dad stared at each other, then back at her. "Okay," said Amelia Bedelia. "Here I am. Are you going to meet me halfway or not?" Amelia Bedelia's dad stood up and walked halfway around the table to meet her. He said, "We will pay for half the cost of a new bike, but you will have to pay for the other half." He held out his right hand. Amelia Bedelia looked at it. "I can't pay you my half tonight," she said. "Of course not," said her father. "Tonight we'll make an agreement. In business, when you agree to do something, you shake the other person's hand." Amelia Bedelia grabbed her wrist and shook his hand as hard as she could. Up and down and up and down, up and... Up and down, up and... "Owie!" said her father. "Not like that, sweetie," said her mother. "This is how you shake hands." Her mother showed her how to shake hands with her father. "Make it a firm handshake," she said. "Your hand shouldn't feel like a dead fish or a wet noodle." Then her parents gave each other a hug. "You should probably leave out the hug part, sweetie," said her mother. "Why?" asked Amelia Bedelia. "I love Dad." She took her father's hand and then her mother's hand. Then Amelia Bedelia hugged both of them together. "Family hug!" she hollered. When they were all hugged out, Amelia Bedelia's father said, "Now, Amelia Bedelia, let's have dessert and talk about how we're going to earn your half of that bike." Chapter 4. You're hired. Since the next day was Saturday, Amelia Bedelia and her parents did what they always did on Saturdays. After Amelia Bedelia's swimming lessons, they had lunch at Pete's diner. Pete's was mobbed. They had to sit at the counter instead of their favorite booth. Amelia Bedelia loved sitting at the counter. She loved being close to the action, hearing the orders called out, watching them get filled, and seeing everyone working together to make the diner run smoothly. While they waited for their food, Amelia Bedelia asked her parents what kind of jobs they had when they were growing up. "I did all sorts of odd jobs," said her dad. "My job doesn't have to be odd," said Amelia Bedelia. "I don't have to be a lion tamer or something unusual. It can be a normal, regular job, so long as it pays me a lot." When I was young," said her mother, "I worked as a waitress. I made buckets of money. My customers always gave me big tips." "That sounds kind of fun," said Amelia Bedelia. "Did they ever tip you so much that you fell over?" Before her mother could answer, the food arrived. The usual waitress was so busy that the owner of the diner, Pete, served them. "Sorry, folks, he said as he put down their plates. I am very short-handed today. Amelia Bedelia looked closely at his hands. They looked like they were the regular length, not too short, not too long. Then she looked at the French fries in front of her. Yum, she said, and she gave the ketchup bottle an extra hard squeeze. The ketchup squirted right over the top of the French fries and onto Pete's clean white apron. Hey, shouted Pete, look out! Ketchup on the loose! Amelia Bedelia thought she was in trouble until Pete chuckled and asked, Do I look like a French fry to you? No, said Amelia Bedelia, but you do look like you need some help. Do you have a job for me? Pete looked at Amelia Bedelia's parents. They both smiled and shrugged. We come here every Saturday, said her father. She knows your routine. Her mother added, She's a good worker. Amelia Bedelia will do exactly what you tell her to do. And she's on vacation now, so she has spare time. Pete leaned forward to take a good look at Amelia Bedelia. I wonder, he said, can you cut the mustard? I've never tried that, said Amelia Bedelia, but I sure can squirt the ketchup. Pete laughed. You sure can. Okay, I'll give it a try. You're hired. You can be an official Pete's Diner waitress in training. Amelia Bedelia reached out and gave Pete a firm handshake. Was that his short hand? She wondered. Honestly, she felt like hugging him, too. Instead, he hugged her parents. Congratulations, sweetie, said her mother. That's my girl, said her dad. You landed your very first job. You're hired. Those were magic words to Amelia Bedelia. Those words meant that her dream bike would soon be a reality. She gobbled down her fries and said goodbye to her parents, then slid off her stool and skipped into the kitchen. Doris, the regular waitress, found her in a uniform. This is the smallest size we got, honey, Doris said. Doris slipped the uniform over Amelia Bedelia's clothes. She tucked here and folded here. Finally, after half a dozen safety pins had been pinned with a bunch of twisty ties had been twisted and tied, Amelia Bedelia was ready for action. You look nervous, said Doris. Don't worry. I'll show you the ropes. Follow me. How cool, thought Amelia Bedelia. What kind of ropes would Doris show her? Cowboy lassos? Mountain climbing ropes? Those thick lines that tie ships up to the pier? Maybe this would turn out to be an odd job after all. Well, said Pete when Amelia Bedelia and Doris came out of the kitchen. Look at you. I can't, said Amelia Bedelia. There's no mirror. Well, believe me, he said, you look like a real waitress. Now, I have only one rule. Can you read that? He pointed at a sign over the cash register. Amelia Bedelia read the sign out loud. The customer is always right. Someone, probably Pete, had underlined the word always in red. Just remember that the customer is always right, said Pete, and you'll never go wrong around here. Wrong, thought Amelia Bedelia. What could possibly go wrong? Chapter 5. When Right Was Wrong. Amelia Bedelia went right to work. She did all the little things that Doris usually did, but didn't have any time to do on such a busy day. Amelia Bedelia refilled ketchup bottles, poured some salt and pepper into the shakers, folded napkins, and got some sugar and sweetener packets. Most of all, she had fun. Then the unthinkable happened. Susan Susan and the 3 girls from Amelia Bedelia's class walked through the door. Amelia Bedelia sank down behind the counter like the Titanic. What should she do? She was excited to tell them about her new job, but also felt super embarrassed in her waitress uniform. Amelia Bedelia inched up to take a peek. The girls had chosen a booth where they couldn't see her. Phew! Now, if she just stayed out of sight, stayed quiet, Amelia Bedelia! Yeah! Amelia Bedelia nearly jumped out of her skin. Luckily, it was only Dolores. Calm down, honey, Doris said. Your mom was right. You are a good worker. Here's a treat. You deserve it. She handed Amelia Bedelia a strawberry milkshake in a tall, frosty glass. Thanks, Doris, said Amelia Bedelia. As she took her first sip, a big man walked in and sat down at the counter. He was wearing a bright orange baseball cap and a patch on his shirt that said Mike. Amelia Bedelia offered him a menu. No thanks, he said. I know what I want. Good, said Doris. That's as easy as pie. And I'm in a big hurry, he added. My truck's still running. No problem, said Doris. At Pete's Diner, fast service is a piece of cake. I'm sure glad to hear that, he said. Please bring me a big piece of cherry pie. Doris turned to Amelia Bedelia and said, This is a simple one. You can fill his order while I go talk to the cook. I'll be back in a few. Amelia Bedelia smiled and nodded to the man. Then she went to the dessert case. As she stood there, gazing at all of the yummy desserts, she realized that she had completely forgotten what the man had ordered. She turned her brain inside out. Was it easy as pie, or was it a piece of cake? Was it easier to bake a pie than a cake? You don't have to frost a pie. That's easier. But you don't have to roll out dough for a cake. Then again, hello there, Mike called. Did you forget me? I'm really in a hurry. Fast, said Amelia Bedelia to herself. That's a piece of cake. That's it. She brought him a piece of cake. Cake? He said. I ordered pie. Sorry, said Amelia Bedelia. I'm just learning. I can tell, said Mike. And I'm late. Just bring me a piece of cherry pie. And step on it. Amelia Bedelia dashed off to get his pie. But now she was more confused than ever. Why did he want her to step on it? She remembered Pete's rules. The customer is always right. She dashed back to Mike and put his pie on the counter. At last, he said, sighing happily. As she lifted his fork to take a first bite, Amelia Bedelia climbed up onto the counter. Onto the counter? What are you doing? Asked Mike. Hey, get off the counter. Just then, Pete came out of the kitchen. What's all the commotion? He asked. Amelia Bedelia, what are you... Amelia Bedelia raised her foot and stepped on that tasty slice of pie with all her might. Gooey cherry pie filling spurted all over the counter, all over Mike, and all over Pete. Mike leaped to his feet. That does it, he yelled. I'm out of here. Wait, Pete called. He got an entire cherry pie from the dessert case. He raced out to the parking lot after him. By the time Pete came back in, Doris had returned, and she and Amelia Bedelia had wiped off the counter. Amelia Bedelia felt awful. It didn't help that she could hear giggles from a certain booth. She recognized Susan's laugh anywhere. I'm sorry about the mess on your apron, Amelia Bedelia said to Pete. Pete looked at his apron. Then he said, At least it matches the ketchup stain. Doris laughed. Amelia Bedelia smiled. Pete sighed and shook his head. I don't know what to say, Amelia Bedelia, except that I have to let you go. Go where? asked Amelia Bedelia. Go home, said Pete. I'm sorry. I am sorry too, said Amelia Bedelia. I wanted to see those ropes and cut some mustard, and I really wanted a big tip. I've got a tip for you, said Pete. You should get an office job. I don't think the world is ready for you to be a waitress. Doris helped Amelia Bedelia out of her uniform. Then she slipped $5 into her pocket. Here, honey, she said. You were the best waitress in training I've ever had. Then Amelia Bedelia left and began the long walk home. Chapter 6. You're fired. Amelia Bedelia was glad she had to walk through the park to get home. Walking by the trees and flowers helped her think. What was she going to tell her mom and dad? Her very first job had lasted less than an hour. They might not feel so proud of her now. Amelia Bedelia spied a big bed of flowers. I know, she said to herself. I'll bring Mom some flowers, then she won't be mad at me. Amelia Bedelia had seen that work for her father when her mom was upset with him. It was worth a try now. She picked a bunch of flowers in different colors and surrounded them with a circle of daisies. Daisies were her mom's favorite, hers too. She had just finished making the bouquet when a policeman walked up. Little girl, he said, where did you get all those flowers? Right here, said Amelia Bedelia. I didn't leave many, but there are still enough for you. The policeman looked where she pointed. You've cleared out that entire flower bed? He said. No, I didn't, said Amelia Bedelia. It's still very dirty. The policeman shook his head. You can't pick flowers in the park. They're for everyone who lives here to enjoy. I live here, said Amelia Bedelia. So does my mom. I picked these for her. You can't do that, the policeman said. In fact, you shouldn't even be standing here. Can you read that? He pointed at a sign stuck in the lawn. Keep off the grass. It says, keep off the grass, said Amelia Bedelia. That means you, said the policeman. Amelia Bedelia looked at her feet. Then she looked at the policeman's feet. What about you? She asked. You're standing on the grass too. The policeman looked annoyed. Are you talking back to me? He asked sternly. Amelia Bedelia wasn't sure what to do. She wanted to answer him, but she'd have to talk back to do it. Finally, she said, yes, but you started talking to me first, so I talked back to you. Then you talked back to me, and I talked back to you. So you. The policeman blew his whistle. Enough, he said. I'll let you off with a warning this time. Now take those flowers home to your mother. I promise I will, said Amelia Bedelia as she waved goodbye. Thanks. Amelia Bedelia walked slowly down the path. As soon as the policeman was out of sight, she sat down on the park bench to rest for a minute. A woman was sitting at the other end of the bench with her dog. She didn't look very happy. In fact, she looked very sad. What lovely flowers, she said to Amelia Bedelia. I'd like to give them to you, said Amelia Bedelia, to cheer you up. But I just promised to take them to my mom. How sweet of you, said the woman. Then she blew her nose. Sorry if I look upset. My boss just gave me a pink slip. Sounds pretty, said Amelia Bedelia. Pretty? She said. It wasn't pretty at all. That's too bad, said Amelia Bedelia. Maybe pink isn't your color. My mom likes white slips with lacy stuff on the top. A curious look came over the woman's face. Then she burst out laughing and kept on laughing until tears streamed down her cheeks. Thank you, she said. I needed a good laugh today. My name is Diane. What's yours? I'm Amelia Bedelia. Meet Buster, said Diane. Her dog held up its paw for Amelia Bedelia to shake. Wow, Amelia Bedelia said. Buster has a firm paw shake. Buster is the best, said Diane. He doesn't care that I was just let go from my job. Me too, said Amelia Bedelia. Then she told Diane what had happened at Pete's diner. Diane laughed even harder when she heard about stepping on the pie. We've got a lot in common, said Diane. We've both been fired. Amelia Bedelia was amazed to learn that being let go was the same as being fired. It reminded her that she still had to go home and tell her parents what had happened at Pete's. She got up to leave. Hey Diane, maybe you should start your own business, she said. Diane nodded. I think you're right, she said. I'd never fire myself. I would be fireproof. And if you're fireproof, said Amelia Bedelia, you never get burned. Right you are, said Diane. Amelia Bedelia scratched Buster behind his ears and said goodbye to Diane. But she didn't get very far. Excuse me, miss. Excuse me. A man was waving at her. Miss, he said, I'm meeting someone here for the first time. Well, it's a date. And I told her I'd be carrying a bouquet. Would you please sell me yours? It's for my mom, said Amelia Bedelia. I'll pay you $10, he said. Amelia Bedelia shook her head. No, I promised. How about $20? He asked. $20? Here you go, she said, handing him the bouquet of flowers. Thanks, he said, handing her a crisp $20 bill. $20, Amelia Bedelia waved to Diane and was on her way once again. But then she heard a familiar voice. She peeked over her shoulder. The policeman had stopped the man with the bouquet. Amelia Bedelia began to walk faster. Excuse me, sir, said the policeman. Those flowers look suspiciously like the ones we grow in the park. Where did you get them? I just bought them. She heard the man answer. From a sweet little girl. Amelia Bedelia began to trot. What little girl? asked the policeman. Amelia Bedelia began to run. She darted through the park gates, running as fast as she could. She flew by a sign that said, "Slow children." I'm not having much luck with signs today, she thought as she raced home. By the time she got to her house, Amelia Bedelia was out of breath. Her parents did not seem surprised to see her. We got a call from Pete, said Amelia Bedelia's father. Next time, call us and we'll come get you. There won't be a next time, said Amelia Bedelia. Oh, sweetie, her mom said. It was a good try. What did you learn from your first job? asked her father. I learned that the customer is always right, said Amelia Bedelia. That's what they say, said her father. Did you learn anything else? asked her mother. Yes, said Amelia Bedelia. I learned that sometimes the customer is crazy. Amelia Bedelia's parents smiled. They stopped when they saw Amelia Bedelia's lower lip begin to tremble. It's no fun to get fired, sobbed Amelia Bedelia. Now I'll never get that bike. Her parents hugged her and hoisted her up into their arms. Don't worry, they said. We have an idea.